Good evening, everybody. Wherever you are in the world today, I hope you're safe and well. And tonight really is going to be, like Matt says, an introduction into tennis analytics and a brief overview of tennis data. So I'm looking forward to presenting this evening. If you guys have any questions throughout the session, please use the Q&A and chat functions, and I'll endeavour to answer all your questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, so like I said before, tonight really, if we've tuned in to listen to me chucking lots of numbers at you, tonight is not going to be about that. The idea is for me to do a 3-part series with UTR, and tonight again is about educating everybody and understanding where we are as a sport regards to tennis analytics, data and video. So what we're going to cover over tonight's presentation, a brief look at my journey into tennis analytics. What does Sport Eye Analytics cover? My role on tour and how I operate. And we're going to look briefly into an ATP player profile and how we look and assess before we start to work with players that we work with on tour. So a brief introduction about my journey. I like to describe my journey as really from tops to tour. So I didn't come from a privileged playing background, but I always had an ambition of working at the highest level. And I think it really is about developing and learning as a coach as we go along the levels. And it's so important to find yourself a mentor. And in that mentor for me was Claudio Pistolesi in 2010. I met Claudio at an RPT conference in London. And I loved his philosophy, his ways of working, and asked him, could I come along and essentially shadow him and learn off him. Claudio's coached 10 top 100 players. He's on tomorrow evening, UTR webinar with Robin Sobling, who we work with. So he's a great guy, and you'll learn more about him tomorrow. And I shadowed him in Germany, Italy, and America. And then in 2015, Claudio set up his company, Claudio Pistolesi Enterprise. During that period, he asked me to come on board as a travelling coach with the players coming out of college and players on tour, female and male, and also working with college players and players wanting to go to D1, D2 colleges. But when I started to travel on the Pro Tour and working at higher and higher level, for me it was about what tool can I use and what armory can I have to coach at the best level in this situation. I cannot do what Claudio did, for example, and talk about when he played Jimmy Connors on Arthur Ashe Stadium and playing Grand Slams and being top 100. So I really fell in love with data and video as a part of my coaching tool on the road. So when I started working in this photo with Ante Pavic, Croatian player, I used to, on the road, film the matches, do the analytics. Then after the match, we'd go back to the hotel, have dinner, and then I'd prepare everything and all the information for after dinner. We'd go into one of the hotel rooms or a boardroom where we could find a TV, and we'd go through and review the matches. So I started using analytics and data on the road. But then in 2018, I got the call from Magnus Norman, which was to my great surprise, and he asked me, could I look at Stan's game before his knee injury and after his knee injury. I said yes to that project and worked with Magnus throughout 2019 and still work with Magnus with his Good to Great Academy in Stockholm. So my journey has been, as I said before, from tops to tour, and now for me tennis analytics is in my blood 100%. So I think it's really important to understand where we've come from as a sport in tennis and where we're going to. So I wanted to run through the data timeline in tennis with everybody this evening. So tennis data first came in 1991, and you're talking primitive information, first serve, second serve percentage, winners and errors, started to come in line in 1991. The big development 11 years later was the invention and the interest of Hawkeye that came onto the tour. And Hawkeye, as we know, allowed players to challenge the line calls, and that was a huge development for the sport. Then in 2009 we had WTA on-court coaching. So coaches could come on during the game and actually present information and their feelings and thoughts to the player. And if you think about tennis, it's one of the only sports that the coaches cannot coach during the match. Then this was a game changer on the WTA side. SAP Analytics came involved in 2017 and allowed coaches to present live data to the players on the court. So again, a huge development within the women's game. Then on the ATP side in 2017, we had the NextGen finals. So the best 8 under-21 players in the world. And this was, again, a huge development for tennis. You can see here the photo. Herbert Hurkacz, who's actually, funnily enough, playing the UTR event at the weekend. You can see him here with a headset. He has the iPad on the court. And it was also the same for the head coach. So now you have two-way communication with video and data live in the match, which was a huge development for tennis. Then a step further, this January, the ATP Cup in Australia, what they created was a strategy room, and you can see in this photo here below is Thomas Muster, is the Austrian captain, and he's delivering back to the Austrian players and their individual coaches in the strategy room set up for the teams. The teams could book out the room, and now in this room they can look at the video and the data and bring it together, which was fantastic. So if you look at the data timeline within tennis, from 91 to 2002, sort of one big development, but now since 2009, particularly since 2017, we're getting a lot more technology and information happening within our sport. So a little bit about what Sport Analytics does and what we do. So Sport Analytics was set up by me the summer of last year, and we currently provide on-demand support for ATP and WTA players, coaches and academies. And for me, it's massively important to provide support in different ways. We work with people like Miomir Kecmanovic, Mira Havatan, Magnus Norman, Claudio Pistolesi, academies in New Zealand and the States. So we really do have a robust client base, and it's very, very exciting to get out of bed in the morning. So how do we do this? We create season data powered with video content. I cannot stress enough, data on its own and presenting data on its own has a value. But with video content, we now go to a different level. And our match reports have over 30 KPIs, key performance indicators, with connected video. So if you think about one match report, there's around 28 pages of information that we produce. That's a lot of information to present to a player and the support team. So it's our job at SportEye to interpret that data and package and present it back to the support teams. Of course, we can give the raw data to the coaches and the teams, but often our job is to interpret that data. And this for me is one of the reasons I wanted to start tonight's presentation in this situation. It's about supporting academies, coaches, federations with the education around analytics. This is still very new within our sport. If you look at baseball, if you look at NFL, they've been using analytics for a long time. One of my favourite films is Moneyball. I go and recommend you watch that. It's a baseball film, fantastic. But they also use analytics nowadays in the draft and then even with junior development. So this is something that tennis is catching up with, but the education around that needs to be stepped up massively. So why use tennis data and analytics within your coaching and your programs wherever you are in the world? So the process that we go with is we capture the information, we analyze the information and interpret the information, and then we share the information. Okay, and we repeat that process day in, day out. How we do that and how we package it is different, and it's tailor-made to whoever we are working with. But that process is vital and is so important. And within that, of course, we're presenting facts. But because we're presenting facts, we're creating, or we hope to create, confidence and certainty with the player base and the coaching team. And this, for me, is massive for whoever you're working with. If you can create confidence and certainty with video and data. And of course, we have the human element. We have the coach's creativity and flavour of how they're going to present. And I must stress, with what we do at Sport Eye, we link in with the head coach or the director of tennis or a key relationship manager at the academy. We very rarely often go direct to the player, because we want to be able to present the information and educate that person to then deliver it back how they want to their player, because they know the players best. And we're creating a roadmap, we're creating a GPS to understand, okay, these are our goals, we've set these goals, but now we can measure the goals now, which is massively important. Instead of going, I feel my forehand is better, I feel my serve is better, we can measure all of these things, which is massively important, again, to create certainty and to create confidence. And if you think about this, 65% of the population are visual learners. So if 2/3 of us learn best visually, why are we all not using video as a tool and as a sidekick within our coaching? This photo for me is a great photo. This is the Mercedes F1 team, Formula 1 team. And if you're aware of Formula 1, you'll know that Lewis Hamilton is their driver. I think he's 5-time world champion now. He's on that photo, so try to look out for him, okay? Lewis, as we know, and we know Formula 1, it's an individual sport. There's one driver going around the bend at 220 kilometres an hour. There's one driver on the podium with the champagne and the trophy. However, he has a support team of 250 full-time staff, from people that are looking at his conditioning, the psychology, okay, the technical development of the car, the physical development of the car, looking at the tyres, the diagnostics. All of these areas are being micro-managed by 250 people in order for him to perform on the track. And tennis is becoming much more like that in 2020 when we get tennis back. So nowadays, when you see the player winning at the end of the week and they hold the trophy, they thank their team. It used to be, I thank my coach. And a team approach is so important in an individual sport like tennis. So a little bit about my role on tour and how I operate, and what really I get down to on a day in, day out basis. And I think it's important to remember that I've said here strategy analyst. In the UK you would say performance analyst, strategy coach, data analyst. So to me, it's not about the title, it's how you're operating and what you're delivering. And the number one thing that I'm doing and delivering on tour, ultimately, I'm trying to provide winning strategies and patterns of play information. Because at the end of the day, these guys are playing for history, they're playing for a lot of money, and they're playing for their ranking and families and everybody else. So for me, my job stops with, can I provide winning strategies and patterns that are going to make 1 or 2% when it comes down to 6-all in the tie break in the third set, and we're playing a quarter-final or a fourth round or a Grand Slam. And a lot of people, when they speak with me and they ask me questions about what I do on tour, they often say, okay, I'm sure you're showing and creating information about the player, what they don't do so well. But for me, actually, my first goal is to show positive reinforcements and to actually show the player what they're doing, at their high level. And also the head coach often likes that. So the head coach will come to me and go, we're working on this. Can you create some highlights and packages and information that are going to give my player a boost on court? Of course, we are still working on things that the player doesn't do so well, but the priority is positive reinforcement and relaying that information. And like I've talked about before, it's a multidisciplinary team approach today. If you look at the photo there, you have the head coach, the physio, the conditioning coach, and now the analyst. And my role doesn't stop with me to the head coach. I often get the conditioning coach coming back to me and say, can I see the player's movement in defense on the backhand today? Can I see their movement to net? Can you time their split step related to contact? So there's so many different ways that I can link in with the other members of the support team. If you're a psychologist, can you code and tag the in-between part of the match? I want to see a highlight reel of the player's body language when they've won a point, when they've lost a point. There really is an infinite amount of ways that you can use video and data, and bring in and connecting myself with a conditioning coach or a physical trainer or a mental coach is absolutely fantastic and obviously helps the player. Obviously, at this level, scouting opponents is a huge part of it. So again, it goes back to creating certainty and confidence. And this is what I do within my scouting reports. This is also going to be a topic I'm going to deliver another webinar on in the future. And scouting is important to rule out what is not going to happen today. That is very, very important. But also look at tendencies of what's going to happen in the match today. Obviously, if the player I'm working with has played the opponent before, that gives us a lot more information than if I'm looking at the player against other similar game styles. But if you think about tennis, you have different conditions: altitude, sea level, indoor, outdoor, clay, grass, hard, left-handed, right-handed. You can imagine scouting is a fine art, and it's a big challenge for me to do that in my job day in, day out. And the last thing around scouting is the time constraints. If the player is playing a Grand Slam, the draw comes out on a Thursday, I maybe have until Tuesday to do the scouting and present the information back on Saturday or Sunday. In a week-long tournament, the player wins on Monday, and they want the information for Tuesday morning on practice. And that's the challenge of the time constraints in getting that in. And last but not least, this is my priority of ways of working, is I over-communicate with the team. So the opposite to that is under-communicating. If I'm presenting information and I'm under-communicating, then we can get information interpreted and lost in translation. So I'm always speaking with the head coach on a daily basis and asking lots of information that you wouldn't think I would ask in my role with data and video. So I'll ask how practice has gone, ask how the player is feeling. All of these areas mount up to the information that we're going to see. Okay, so a little bit about player profiling. So when we start working with a player, it's important to look back at their information and their history. So we always go back and we code and assess a certain amount of matches that are agreed upon with the team in different situations. And then we present a roadmap of what we've seen and where we think is great for the player and where we think we can work on. So what is our player profiling, and what are our KPIs that we're doing within a player profile? Okay. Of course, the number one situation in tennis, the serve. The serve is by far the most important shot in tennis. The most common rally number in tennis is 1. Okay, and we know we have an ace, the serve goes in, the return goes in the net. The serve goes in, the return goes out. That is 1. That happens most in our sport. So the serve is vital to success. That is without a doubt. So what do we look at within the serve? We look at the placement types and the win percentage on where you're placing the ball. And again, we can microcycle this down to, this is your season data on wide serves on the deuce, to this is wide serves on the deuce against this player, this is wide serves on the deuce on this surface, etc. So this is the beauty of data and what we are doing with the video content. And of course, this is massively important if we're talking about winning and making the player more successful on the match court, the direction related to score. So where are they serving at 15-40? If they're serving wide at 15-40, what is their success rate? That is vitally important to know. Are the patterns the player's been doing previously before we've got involved, what is working and what isn't working? This is really, really important. So if you look at a Hawkeye report, you see the serves in play, and you see the success rate. But on our reports, we code where the serve is being missed. And that is vital for the practice court, for the head coach to look at and assess and go, okay, this is great to see that this is where we missed most today. Was it net? Was it long? Was it wide? Was it at the end of the set, the beginning of the set? There's so many variables within our game that you can data mine and get down to the very small microbes of the match. And this is very, very important. The player readiness levels related to the time of season, surface or training I've put an asterisk at the end of this bullet point because I can only do this as a strategy coach if I'm working with a physical trainer, because the physical trainer is going to monitor the readiness level and the loads that the player is taking on the practice court and in the training blocks. That will have an effect on data. If the player has played and travelled back-to-back 5 weeks in a row, they've gone deep into tournaments, their information is going to be different if their readiness level and they're burning out. Okay, that's going to have, for example, the physical impact on the serve is absolutely massive. So linking in with a conditioning coach, if we have that with the player support team, is vital. Next shot, of course, the return. A vital component of our KPI and what we're looking at. So we're looking at percentages of returns made on the first and second serve. And again, we will break it down to season data on surface and against left-handers, right-handers, wherever we want to go with it. The head coach can direct and we will advise as well. And of course, the type of return. You see Novak here hitting an unbelievable drive backhand win across court. So are they slicing? Are they blocking? Are they driving? It's very, very important to understand that. What is the favourite type of return of the player? Do they need to change that? The return position. If you're Rafa or if you're Stan, you're backing up to the lines judge. If you're Kyrgios or Andy or Novak, you're taking the ball on inside the court. Again, that's going to affect strategy and the type of return that you're going to make. Return zones. Where is the ball landing and where is the most effective place for the ball to go? And then how are we putting the ball there? So if our most effective zone is there with Rafa hitting a short angle, are we blocking, are we driving, are we slicing? And we need to know that. And I know someone like Andy Murray, they changed his return type against a certain player in order to win big titles. That certain player, I'm sure we can all guess. They analysed and they assessed, and they found the key to unlock breaking serve, and it was down to his return type. His return position was the same. His return zone was the same. It was the type of return he was playing. And again, we go back to readiness level. Okay, how is the player feeling physically and mentally? Because that will have an effect on the stats and the information that we're seeing on the court. Okay, serve plus one, serve plus first ball, however you want to describe it. So we know 70% of the match on average is 0 to 4. So this is vital, and it's vital to know if we're going to be successful in this zone. Are we in defence or attack? How often are we in defence or attack? On the due side most often, or the ad side? Most often if I hit wide or down the tee. Again, we can data mine in any direction possible. Okay, where are we making contact on the first ball after serve? And where is our court position? Of course, that's going to be linked to the quality of the serve. There is always a link here. That's important for me to stress. All of these bullet points link through the chain of data and information. The direction we're hitting ball through. So forehand or backhand, what is our optimum direction against Solda? What is our optimum direction against Rafa? These things are vital to know going into the match. And of course, the outcome. How often are we playing ball 5? Okay, or ball 4? How often are we playing that in which game situation? This is important. How effective are we? Another KPI, as we're probably aware at the moment, these are all having a link in the rally length. So return and ball 4, the next ball after return. And again, a lot of the KPIs are similar. Are we in defence or attack? You can see here on this video, the return has driven the ball middle deep, pushed the server back, and then created an opportunity on ball 4 to get to net and actually break serve. And in this match, this was vital. Again, the contact point linked to court position. The direction. What is our optimum direction when we get that next ball? Again, it's repeatable patterns in tennis. You want to be the best at repeating the most successful patterns that you know are going to get you over the line. And again, outcome and game situation. Where are we at after ball 4? Another KPI, our court position. Okay, so court position, slightly different KPIs. We're relating to game planning, surface, and the conditions. That is going to have an effect on our court position with our data, 100%. What type of player and the goals of the team within our court position? You can see in this point here, Misha's goal is to stick to the baseline and try to turn the point around and be in control to break the serve. Okay, does this very well at this point. Are we reactive or proactive? So are we somebody that wants to be on the baseline, dictating the rally, taking the point on? Or are we someone that wants to be a counter-puncher and receive pace rather than give pace? Again, what are the winning patterns around my court position? What is the most effective court position against what opponent and where? Another KPI, court position linked to net gain. Okay, so we look for the percentage of net appearances in each match. How often do we get to net? Again, against which opponents? It's more difficult to get to net against Rafa than it is against other people, for sure. A winning percentage when we get to net. Okay? How effective are we when we're getting up there? What's our best approach to get up there? Are we planning to come to net, or is it reactive? Are we only coming to net when we get an obvious short ball, or are we looking to dictate the rally and plan? A little story here from a scouting report I did against Novak Djokovic for Stan and Magnus in September 2019 last year. Novak in 2016 against Stan came to net 5 times in that 2016 final. Against Juan del Potro in 2018, he came to net 37 times. And I'd studied that Novak was coming into net more and more throughout the year. And that was a big play on my scouting report that I said that he's going to play a lot more vertical. They played 2 sets before Novak retired. And Novak came in 17 times in those 2 sets. So Stan was prepared and ready for that. And the connected patterns. Again, going inside out, down the line, backhand, forehand, to their backhand or forehand, getting them off the court, giving them no angles. There's all these tactical and strategy implications around what we want to do. Okay, a little brief case study around Miomir Kecmanovic, who now is playing the UTR event at the weekend. I hope you can all tune in and catch him playing. I think he's playing a Pelka first round. I might be wrong. So you can see here, he's currently 47 ATP, NextGen contender. But when we start to go into the data and information, this is his UTR rating. And his trending UTR rating for 2020 is 29 in the world. He's trending 3 months UTR, in fact going back to December, January, February. His ranking is 47. So his form ranking from a UTR point of view is inside the top 30. If you look at our graph here, this is Misha's ranking for first serve, second serve, first return, second return in the world, just for this data. So you can see second serve return, second serve this year, he's 6 in the world on our KPIs. You can see his first return is halved from 2019 to 2020. So these informations and all the KPIs that I showed you, like I said before, we have over 30 KPIs. They were the main ones that I just displayed there. But as I showed you here, we can create a ranking compared to everybody else in the top 100 on this information. So we can find out where are we at in blocking off this section, first serve, second serve. So you can see here, the first return has massively improved. You can see his second serve return is one of the best in the world. So the serve on the first serve and the first return you can see if that starts to go in the right direction, which it is, but it goes even more, then there's going to be some exciting times ahead for him on the tour. So just to summarise over the last 30 minutes, I think hopefully you'll all agree that technology in tennis is developing fast and is for sure here to stay. And I think it will go through all the levels eventually. Analytics for me creates a roadmap to success and creates confidence and certainty. Data with video equals improved performance. And a strategy analyst role, like myself, is multidisciplinary. It involves a team approach. So I really, really appreciate everybody listening. I'm looking forward to doing some more presentations in the future. Coming soon, I want to present on winning patterns and go into detail there, opponent scouting, and any more requests I have in the future, please feel free and I'm happy to present. You can find about Sport Analytics on our email, Facebook or Twitter, or our website, sportanalytics.com. And you can please send me a message on social media, Mike James Sports, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So, over to your questions, guys. Presentation mode. See if we have any questions. Okay, there's lots of questions. Here we go. Match predictions could be part of analytics in the future. Okay. Match predictions already happen. Of course, they happen with analytics. UTR do it, I think, very well on the tennis channel I've seen. They talk about the competitiveness rating for UTR. So I think UTR are doing a great job of that already, and I think that's so important. Let's have a look at some other questions. What are the main KPIs for doubles teams? Great question. So we focus again 0 to 4. 0 to 4 happens more than 70% within doubles. And we actually, I'll give you one main area that we focus on, which is really, really important. How much the service partner is touching the ball on the first ball after serve, and how much the returner's partner is touching the ball on the first ball after return. So actually, if you think about that, often they're going to be playing a volley and in control of the volley. So that's a really, really important KPI within doubles. And I'll give you one more, formations. And how effective is an I formation? How effective is it to stay back? So they're very, very, very important. Okay. So many questions. Okay, this is a great question. Is it subjective that the player is in attack or defense? Great question, and this is why tennis at the moment, from an AI point of view, the holy grail is everybody's out to get the smart court technology that actually can pinpoint the player in defense attack. Is it an unforced error or a forced error? That technology at the moment isn't there. That for sure will be. Okay, that's only a matter of time. But you have to, and what I do with our support teams and the head coaches, I basically agree how we're going to value the player in attack, neutral or defense, and we agree that early on. Because if you're working with a player in futures and they've served the ball in and they're going backwards on the first ball after serve, at that level you often see they're 9 times out of 10 in defense. If Stan Wawrinka is being pushed back on his first ball after serve, he can actually produce a winner or forced error. So then it's a decision to go, okay guys, do you want me to code him in defense because he's actually going in a defensive situation, or do you want to code that as attack because he's produced an attack ball off that? So it really is, I know what my KPIs are and I always present that to the support teams, but I always let the head coach decide how they want to mould the KPIs for that player. Do you work with any Indian tennis players on tour? No, I've had some conversations with some good players, but currently no. I'd love to work with some Indian players. Okay, more questions. So many questions. Which ones do I want to answer? Okay, how much machine learning do you think would be involved in the future with tennis analytics? I think basically it will all be automated. So my role will change from, I physically still code the matches and I get involved in delivering and watching the matches and coding them or tagging them and delivering them back. I still get involved with that. But eventually that will all be done. So then it will come down to a coach's role, will be multidisciplinary, and every coach will be an analyst. It's just how experienced you are and how good you are in interpreting that data. Okay, great question. How do we record junior matches that aren't televised? So, at Tennis Europe and ITF level, you can speak to the referee. As long as you agree with the referee that you can film with a GoPro or whatever camera you want to use, and you speak with the opponent, you can film the match. So we have a system and a process where people film the matches remotely on whatever device they want, and then they upload the matches to our server, and then we code them. Okay, how much of an analytics background did you have before getting into analytics? So I didn't have a maths background, but as a coach, I studied technology and information all the way through my career, and I felt it was the best tool for me to use when I started on the professional tour. This is a good question. Tagging seems very exhausting. How long does it take to tag a match with so many KPIs? So basically, a 2-hour match takes 2 hours. So I've got to the level now where I can not live tag, but I can code the match at the speed it's happening. Okay, so that's down to how you create the tagging panel and part of the software. So many questions coming in, guys. Thank you so much. Now, I'm currently not working with Jamie Murray. There's a great doubles coach in the UK, Louis Kea, really into his analytics and data and dartfish information. And yeah, he's a great coach and uses this with his players. Tableau. Someone asked me, is Tableau software a big part of your day in, day out? So we use Tableau, we use Power BI to present graphs. So these software companies are very, very important for our visuals for sure.